legislation. One I think that you'll see is make it mandatory for the Adjutant General to provide that report every year. I'm good with that, rather than just the tag volunteering to do it. Make it mandatory. They were interested in maybe providing some resources to A&I to help us out with some investigations for EO investigations, because we struggle trying to go hire somebody. It's expensive. It's about $6,000 to hire an outside investigator to do an EO complaint, and they want to help us with that, which would be helpful. And then we'll see. We got another meeting with them on the 11th of January to see if there's any other things they want to look about it. The thing I will tell you, this is my assessment as I took in a couple of different things, and that's why I wanted to really brief you. My assessment is we do not have a culture in the military department that supports sexual assault or sexual harassment. That is not to say that we do not have certain individuals and maybe some units where it's tolerated more than it should be. And we've just got some folks that haven't gotten it yet. So I am pleased that we've made some progress on there. I'm not satisfied until we have, until it doesn't occur anymore. I based that assessment on a few things. First, we had South Dakota EEO come in a couple of years ago and really take a hard look at some Air Guard units, because I was getting some complaints when I first was appointed as the Adjutant General. I was getting some complaints from them about particular couple of units. They found that, hey, there was some cause for concern there. We actually we changed out the commander of the unit, resurveyed him again, and saw some pretty good results. Also had our IG over the last 2 years, when they go out and do sensing sessions, really talk to them and say, hey, what are you guys thinking about this? The biggest driver was the Deox survey that we did, every Department of Defense formation did after the Fort Hood incident. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. And then lastly, it's just my own battlefield circulation, just talking to people, just trying to get a sense of what's going on. So that's what led me to that assessment. And so I will tell you, like I said, I'm not satisfied with it, because we got some more work to do, but I don't think there's a culture out there that supports it. And I think we ought to continue to get after that piece. All right, let me show you a couple of things from the Deox survey. So I think you guys can read this. This one around the red box is probably the worst we did in that assessment. Has someone from your unit told sexual jokes that made you uncomfortable, angry, or upset? And so on the Army side, we had about 80%, 78.5% said that's never happened, but a little over 21% said that it had happened in their career. On the air was a little bit better. About 86% said it's never happened, but 13% said it had. So one of the things the IG pointed out was a couple of units said, hey, we've got some instances where inappropriate jokes and made people uncomfortable. This sort of supports that, and I tell you again, as I walk around, that seems to be where we're hitting at. I'll talk a little bit more about Deox and where we're going. So that's kind of where our focus is going to be, is trying to get that rooted out. If I were to tell you what I think success looks like in this, if we're standing around as a group here, and James and I and Misty and Chief Lewis, and we're talking, and I tell an inappropriate joke, or I say something that's maybe offensive to somebody, I would like that group to self-correct us, to come up to me and say, hey, listen, that, I don't know if you intended it or not, but this is how it affected me. I don't think that's in accordance with the way we should treat each other with dignity and respect, and we handle it there. If, however, Misty and I are having a conversation in her office and it's just the two of us, and I make an inappropriate remark or something like this, I want Misty to go to Doug. She can certainly tell me and say, hey, listen, I don't think that was very appropriate. Don't talk like that. But then I also want you to go up your chain of command and take it further. So when we have those one-on-one things, I don't want us to brush that under the rug. I want us to talk that up and push that up. So does that make sense in sort of the culture I think where we'd like to? I mean, I've done a lot of thinking about it. I went down so far as to think, hey, should we have an app that our unit members could, if they see something going on over here, that they could report it? And the more I thought about it, and the more I thought about, really the good people that we have in our ranks, I didn't want to get there. I don't want us to be reporting on one another. I want us to have that culture of dignity and respect. I want us to self-correct But if we can't get it, then I want us to push it up so that we can root it out. That's important to me. I really, if you guys think if I'm missing the boat, or if there's something there we need to add, let me know. But that's how I want to approach it. Interested for feedback if you guys got any on that one. All right, let's still keep working it, because I think that's important for us as an organization as we deal with it. It's a societal issue out there that comes into our ranks. Like I said, I don't think we teach it. We don't get any folks into a room here and we give them a PowerPoint slide on how to sexually harass people or sexually assault or any of that other stuff. I don't think we do that. But there still has been a culture in some places where we're not as good as we want to be. What's the next one? That's another set of data up there. Just I'll have you guys read that as what Deox said. While you're doing that, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the other thing that did. Sexual assaults in the Wyoming National Guard. We had 6 reported last year in TY21. 3 of them were from TY21. The other 3 were from previous years that they finally felt comfortable coming forward and saying, "Hey, listen, I was assaulted." As we look at that data, of the 6, only 1 was a Wyoming Military Department member that was a perpetrator. The other 5 were from outside our organization. And what we found from that is we're seeing 2 real danger areas for folks that are sexual assault victims. One is when they leave their wingman and battle buddy. When they go on a TDY trip, they go to an annual training outside the state. When they go to basic military training, when they get away from us that can keep an eye on one another and take care of one another, there's danger. So we've started to get after that, particularly for our student flight and our RSP program. We brief our folks now before they go to training. What's it look like to get groomed? When people are trying to set you up to be a victim, we want to train you a little bit better so you see that. Don't get caught in a place that's not covered by a camera. Don't put yourself in a situation where you could be vulnerable for our basic trainees, because they're just figuring it out. And frankly, there's a lot of trust that they have when they go down there. So we're trying to get after that a little bit more effectively. Second thing we found out, almost all the time, alcohol is involved. Either the perpetrator, the victim, or more likely both of them. Second thing that was interesting about that is our victims and perpetrators tend to be of the same rank, and they've been on the lower ranks, E3 on E3, E4 on E4. That's where it seems to be occurring. So that's one of the things that commanders, you'll probably have noticed when you have requests for alcohol to come up to do something with a unit party. I'm very interested in the mitigation measures that you have for that. And more importantly, I just did this with Robert, the after parties, those things where folks get, they have a beer or two. We keep it pretty mellow at the party, but then a group may pick up and they go someplace else. They go to a bar, they go to somebody's house, and they continue drinking, and that's when we find things kind of get out of control. So that's the kind of stuff we're focused on the preventive side of the house on that. So those of you who are commanders, enlisted leaders, keep that in your mind as we do that. Because I don't want to certainly create the environment where we have victims. So we had very good data on sexual assault. We, in particular, the military writ large, does a good job of taking care of our victims. We got lots of resources. We've got some exceptional victim advocates. They're well trained. We've got more than enough of them, and that we do a great job. Where we need to focus on now is prevention. And so we've got a couple of different programs that we're getting off for that. There's bystander training, peer influencer. Chief Stroud talks about peer influencer training yesterday up at Guernsey. So you'll see some of those programs start to filter out that just help us sort of recognize when something might be going high and right so that we can get on it. Let's see. What we found on sexual harassment was each employee status has a different way to report it. So if you're an Army MDA soldier, if you're an Air DSG guardsman, if you're a Title 32 technician, if you're a Title 5, if you're a state employee, each one of them has a different way to report harassment. And we had no visibility at the top up here, a way to aggregate that data and sort of get trends. So that's the biggest thing I took away from it, and how we're going to have to fix that. That's Mr. Smith and Colonel Schoenfeld's job right now, is how do we get that data aggregated so we can make some good decisions about it. All righty. I think that's about everything I had on this one. Anybody got any questions, comments? Do faster, better, funnier? First Sergeant.
So, from the JFHQ side of things, I see our Deox, and we're talking about Deox here, so I appreciate the conversation and letting us know where we're at with sexual assault, sexual harassment. You know, taking that stance is a great thing. But on the other side of that Deox, there was also race issues. Where do we,
Yeah.
what's the process and what's the plan for mitigating and stopping some of those crazy things?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for starting. I appreciate it. I'll tell you, most of my bandwidth has been focused on, out of the Deox, has been focused on sexual assault, sexual harassment. I've got to get after some of these other things, and I'll just tell you, I just don't have the bandwidth. It's just been so much turnover. I've got a new ATAG, got a new chief, got a new sergeant major, got a new joint chief, got a new chief of staff, got a new DJS, got a new senior enlisted leader. I just have not had time to get that group together and sit down and get after the rest of the Deox, because there's more there. Exactly what you said, First Sergeant, is how do we get after the racism, extremism sort of things. There's some other issues that I'll brief, and I think I'm going to brief that in the TAG Town Hall here in April. I think is where I'll get more of the Deox stuff to you. So probably not the answer you want. We just haven't got to it. We just haven't gotten to pull and pack all the Deox stuff. Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you on that one. So cool. Sir.
Hey, sir, first on Michael. So have you gotten any, you talk about mitigation for sexual harassment, sexual assault, from your subordinate commands, have you gotten any ideas that have, bubbled up yet on how we mitigate that at the level?
You know, I can't think of one off the top of my head in terms of something. I mean, a lot of this stuff that I briefed you did come up from them. So I don't want to, I'm not like, I didn't take credit for all of that. So how do I parse that out? I don't know how to tell you that. Is there something there we missed that maybe we ought to get after it? Yeah. Yeah, some of those definitely, most of those came up on some way, shape, or form about how to do. Peer influencer was a bottom-up fed. Bystander training, that one sort of was top down. But good stuff. Like I said, if I'm the only one doing the thinking about it, it's not going to be enough. We got to get all of us into this. So thanks for starting. If anybody's got ideas, please send them up. Yeah. Cool. Sir. Ma'am, sorry.
Sir, Master Sergeant Motley. How are you today?
I'm good.
So I just want to read a quick comment to the commands bringing up issues. So we've changed the way that we do sharp training so that we can have that meeting with the command prior to sharp training, so that we have that feedback and we build a plan specific to the unit. And we use the Deox Survey, and sometimes if we have that information, we agree. So that's how commands have brought things to us. First Sergeant, if you have more ideas, come get with me so we can put them out there. Peer influencer works E5 and below, builds trust in the organization. To consider ourselves at a point where we can do like a tipping point in the organization, we're going to have 168 peers trained. At 20 a class, it's going to take us a minute to get there. But we're always open, and Sergeant Major Herrera is helping me with this because it's a big undertaking. We're always open to topics. Please bring them to us. But in the way of prevention, that's how we've adapted SHARP training in the state of Wyoming, and that's based on the SHARP task force and the information we took from the Fort Hood report. I guess that's a comment on the questions.
Thanks. Hey, we did have a pretty good discussion, I thought, at the TAG Advisory Council. There was a pretty significant sentiment that we need to change the way we train it. The PowerPoint slide that we do every year doesn't get us there. You know, Sergeant Motley and her team have been very on the leading edge of buddy aid training across the National Guard. It came out of South Dakota originally, but these guys have sort of taken it up a notch. You just got back from, did you go to Little Rock to teach it? Yep, to teach it. So I think what you're going to see a lot of focus from us is how do we train this differently that makes it, you know, back to, we thought we had some really good discussions with extremism training and the racism training that we had with the small group sort of atmospheres that we had. Maybe that's a better way to talk this. So I think we're going to spend some time going through how do we just train this better? How do we, instead of just going through the old PowerPoint, that doesn't seem to get us that kind of traction. So we'll do that. Cool. Ma'am.
Denise Wall, just a quick question. I know most of this sounds like it's service member centric, the survey. So is there, and I know you said there's no mechanism really, or each personnel status had its own way of reporting up to the top. How about for the civilian sector, the state employees, federal contractors?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. We are getting all those different lines of reporting up to one location now where we can talk to that. I am not tracking any of those on the state side as of yet. Denise, maybe we can have another conversation, but at the end of the day, it is about the military department. And the Deox survey was one set of data that I used to make an assessment, not the only set. And it specifically did not include our state employees and our Title V folks. So that I'm definitely missing that piece of it. So, but I don't know that, as you said, it's service centric, but the results are still the department. It's still, we're all gonna, I mean, the culture that I kind of described is what I want us all to get to. So I think we can still get there, and maybe we can have another conversation if there's a blind spot.
Training, you know, I think sometimes for the forgotten group.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. Appreciate it. Sorry, Motley.
I have a comment. I'm sorry. So we have a movement in the NGB down. It's called No Closed Door. So if any employee of the military department reaches out to an equal opportunity representative or a victim advocate or a sergeant, our mission is to take that person in and develop a plan for them and then do warm handoff to the element that they need to work with. It's brand new. We haven't really gotten very much on the ground with it. It actually just got published last month, so I haven't even had a chance to talk to the general about it, but no closed doors. So if you open up to anybody, we'll support and develop a program for safety.
Thanks.
All righty, let's go on to the next one. Okay, back to, I had it on the agenda, but I didn't talk to it. It's back to the first sergeant's point of Deox. There's more on the Deox that we got to get to. One of the things that we found on all this is we tend to reinvent ourselves every 2 years when we do a Deox survey. So, you know, Porter comes in as the adjutant general, has the Deox survey stuff that we've been working in, and then we have a new Deox survey now. So I'll ditch all the previous work that we did, and I'll start with this new set of cool things that we've come out of this Deox survey. And I tell you, there's not a lot of different, you know, communication is a big, organizational communication is still a common thread that comes through Deox surveys, but we attack it a different way. So what, you know, what I know frustrates our people the most is I keep asking you these questions and you keep telling me the answer and I don't fix it and I keep coming back and asking you again. So we want to stop that OODA loop of dumbness there and keep after, hey, we know what the issues are. Let's be deliberate and continue on with our action plans, and we don't need to start a whole lot. All those Deox will do is kind of help us tweak it, but I'm almost to the point now that I'm not gonna ask you again about stuff until we get some action plans on this one, because you guys are tired of telling me to that point. So we're going to work through that a little bit. And as the first sergeant said, we got some work to do on Deox. I've got some really smart people starting to think through that right now. The wing commander and the chief of staff, The unit level stuff is already going on. So let me say that. The stuff at the battalion level is happening. The stuff at the brigade level, at the wing level, that's all going on. But there's some issues that bubble up that they cannot fix. It's just, they don't have the resources, they don't have the time, whatever. That's what we got to get at as a group. Our commanders know what Deox told them, and they're working through it, and you should expect to have already seen what the unit level folks are doing about Deox. What's left over is those big, hairy problems that may even be above the adjutant general's level, but that's what we're trying to get after now. All right, let's go to the workforce solution. So you've been, ever since I got to be the adjutant general, I've had there's been this request from some folks, hey, let's go to 410s. Let's do 410s. That got compounded with the fact that then COVID came in and we had to be very flexible with teleworking. And so we got some folks that were very interested in continuing to do telework and some that were not very interested in continuing to do telework, to be honest. The whole thought process in my mind here is, hey, I think we're going to lose talent if we don't kind of come along with the rest of the world in being a little bit more flexible in our work schedules, because that's what's keeping people, is that flexibility. Now, I'm an old guy, and so it's tough for me to move off of some of that. I'm kind of an 8 to 5. That's the way I've always done it, sort of. So the team has been trying diligently to educate me on the newness out there. So what I will tell you is this: the number one priority that I look at when we try to figure out work schedule is, how does it support our customers and partners? We are here for a reason. Primarily as a full-time force, it's to support our MDAs and DSGs to be able to do the missions. As a force as a whole, it's to defend the state and nation. So we got a lot of partners in there. We got a lot of people that we depend on to do that. It's, you've heard General McConville, if you're on the Army side, you can't telework to the battlefield, and there's trueness to that. You can't build teams on telework. It's very difficult. But we know there are some places in the organization that telework works really well, and for the individual. And there's opportunities that I don't think we have to be as rigid as we had in the past about when we telework. If somebody has a sick kid, the HRO is going to go nuts on me here in a minute. If somebody has a sick child and they need to stay home that day, maybe telework is a way to do that. So we add some flexibility. 410s for the Joint Force Headquarters, I generally think it's a bad idea. You've heard me say this before. I've talked to other adjutants general. They're not real big fans of it. If they could change it, they would. For those of us that are in computer or in an office all day, it is tough to get 10 hours of productive work because your brain just gets spongy after about 7. So I'm not real wild about our cubicle folks and those of us that are doing those computer stuff doing 410s. However, there are some places where our customers, where it makes absolute sense. If you look up at Guernsey, our range personnel, that's where their customers are. They start at 7 in the morning, they go late. And so maybe that makes a good opportunity. Perhaps our maintenance folks. We're going to run a test with the aviation support facility. Maybe 410s work good there. When we do it, I just want to be very deliberate about measuring how well we do our customers, our productivity, and those kind of things if we go to a new schedule. And so that's what we're learning with the ASF is, are we looking at the right metrics? Are we testing it right? What's it going to give us? Can it tell us the right answer? So that's how we're approaching it. But I foresee there's going to be parts of our organization that may have a slightly different schedule. Maybe we can do a little more telework here. Maybe we can do a little more, 410s there. And we'll see where that shakes out. My goal for next year is that we won't have a drill on a Phoenix Friday. So, because for a host of reasons, I don't think it does anybody any good. It either forces our full-timers to come in on time they've earned off, or it forces our DSGs and our MDAers to not have support right before drill. So the team's working through that right now, because it could be that we'll have 2 Phoenix Fridays in a row, to make it work, 2 4-day weeks. And then we could have 2 weeks where we go, we work Fridays because of the drill. So that that screws up the state, screws up our state timekeeping, it screws up some other things, but that's the goal, is how do we get those longer blocks of times around holidays, and that makes sense, so we have maybe some 4-day weekends where folks can get some time off, and we still support our mission, if that makes sense. So that's what we're going through right now. I think you'll see us, the Army does a training synchronization support conference where we look at next year. That's, I think, where we'll start seeing that come out. So that's what that looks like. Anybody got any questions, input on that? Does that make sense? Guaranteed to make everybody unhappy. Some people will be happy about it, but.
Well, just a comment. It does help, like we just recently had an account position open to the state. It does help us be able to market where we can't necessarily with wages and stuff. We can say, hey, look, we've got alternating schedules. We've got the ability to telework, because at least with other state agencies, they're further behind. A lot of them are further behind than even we are.
Okay.
So at least gives us a selling point, because we only have 14 applicants.
Yeah.
But we have more than other agencies are having the same position, because people wanted a better work life. So it is beneficial that we have that option there to get some of the different talent.
Good deal. Thank you. All right, let's go. PT policy. So we've had the same PT policy for a long time. When the Army came out with the new ACFT, a lot of their, I mean, it was based in science, and so their whole thought was, you got to train for this new PT policy. You can't, or this new PT test. You can't just, roll out of bed and go take it. So it just got us thinking that maybe we need to reevaluate how we do PT on the full-time force here. And so Major Maury and the group are going through that right now, trying to take a look at it. We should get a recommendation here soon, but I think you're going to see some ability to be a little more flexible with PT, and maybe some more opportunities to do physical training. I think that's good for everybody. It's going to apply to the entire force, state employees, Title V's, everything like this. I think it's good for us as a whole to be healthy. Helps our resiliency. There's goodness to it. There's going to be a lot of supervisors that are going to have to manage this, and really, just like with most things, integrity from our employees will be paramount as we get this. But probably shortly after the first of the year, I'll get a brief on this, and we'll push it out to the force and see what that looks like. But I'll give you an update. Go ahead. Really quickly, upcoming legislative session. I will tell you, Doug and I met with Joint Appropriations Committee last Monday. Went very well. The governor approved all our exception requests. He was very supportive this year. The big things for us were an additional $400,000 in tuition, so we don't have to, make Jenna freak out again like last time and not have enough money to support our soldiers and airmen. That was the big thing, and then museums, funding for the museum. Everything else is good. I think I'm feeling pretty good. I didn't get any sense from Joint Appropriations that they were looking for money like they were the previous years and trying to scrape stuff from us. So I think that's going to be good on the state budget. Got really 3 bills. First bill is child care. We did a survey. And it may impact whether they stayed in uniform or not. So we're asking to expand our trust fund language. The legislator gave us a trust fund about 15, 20 years ago now, but it's pretty narrow on what we can fund. So we're asking to change the language on that so that we can refund child care expense drill to our soldiers and airmen. Would that help anybody out here? Is it beneficial? Raise your hand if it would be. So 4. Okay. But that's the intent. The committee's been very supportive, so I think they'll get us. They'll allow us to do that, and so we'll see how that goes. Number 2 is creating a buffer zone around Oregon State Veterans Cemetery. They just want to make sure that we don't get encroachment on it, and so there's disagreements on how we get to the buffer zone, but everybody's of the opinion that we need to have one. I think we'll get that figured out. This last one is restrictions on parental authority delegation. We just extended the timeline out. Last year they had a bill that really shrunk it down to 6 months for us. Doesn't work very well for those people that are deploying. that would have to renew it every 6 months, so we've extended it out. I don't expect that to be much of an issue. I do think we may get some more help on the sexual assault, sexual harassment deal. I already talked to you about making the Adjutant General do it and support A&I. Go ahead. All righty, two so far. All right, Chief, wow 'em. I got them set up for you. They're riveted.
Rub sleep out of your eyes.
Hello.
If you can't hear me, raise your hand. Again, same thing. I got Mike. I don't want to yell in Sergeant Marshall's ear. I don't have to. You good? All right. Man, you did have them riveted, sir.
Yeah, I know. Sorry
A
about
little
that.
different view here.
Yeah.
Some drool, I think I see. Now, real quick, this is a quick briefing. Shouldn't take long. This is me introducing myself as the Command Senior Enlisted Leader, a new position we have in the state. Had a lot of questions on what is it, why are we doing what we're doing? Please explain this. So this is a form I thought was appropriate to do that, and then I'll try to do this real quick and stand by for any questions you may have for General Porter or I. So next slide. So what is a Command Senior Enlisted Leader? So some states have them. It is a National Guard doctrine out there to have some Command Senior Enlisted Leaders. All states had Senior Enlisted Leaders, right? State Command Chief, State Command Sergeant Major. Usually what ended up happening is one of those got dual-hatted, or they tried to split some Command Senior Enlisted duties between two. And that kind of worked for us for a lot of years here in Wyoming. And what we found out, though, as the national level started to change, the General Hokanson level, Senior Enlisted Advisor, Chief Master Sergeant Tony Whitehead, things started to occur in that arena that we were kind of missing out on, or we were getting late, and we weren't able to get onto these opportunities for our enlisted folks that were available. So if you didn't have that C-cell moniker, like the big emails didn't go to you right away and things like that, even though you were dual-hatted, you didn't get recognized that way. So that was a problem we saw. Because there is a lot of things happening there, a lot of things changing at the national level for the enlisted side for the National Guard. So we wanted to make sure we got there. Really, it is a Senior Enlisted Leader just like the Army and Air have, but this is at the tag level. This is at that level to help out there, to say we're there. So it also helps from the other aspect. It ensures consistent messaging to the tag from the enlisted perspective. Sometimes what happened when we were dual-hatted, we're doing some of these jobs, we'll have our service hat on inadvertently as we're trying to do some of these things in the joint or the tag arena, trying to explain some things. So if he's only talking to me as the state command chief and I'm dual-hatted, everything that's hitting me is I've got my Air Force hat on and I'm not thinking about the total enlisted force. So he might not be getting the whole story he needs to get unless we work really hard to make sure we bring in both, which we did pretty good here, but it did make it a difficulty. Probably the biggest difficulty was one of the A tags, ever who's doing that dual hat, doesn't really have the senior enlisted person. So in my case, it was the Air A tag didn't really have their senior enlisted leader person. They had me doing some stuff, but you know, I was deferential to my boss every day, the 2-star. I didn't always focus in on what the 1-star needed. So all those generals need to have that enlisted voice there. They need to make sure that somebody is representing. And so that created that position and cleaned that up a little bit. Who fills that role? It could be joint Army or Air. The key to that is ever who does fill it, the bill payer does come from the service. So that's how that works. So what we did on the Air side is I filled the C-cell role. We were able to find a way to drill status guard, or MDay, a state command chief. So we now have a state command chief who's a drill status guardsman on the Air side, Chief Master Sergeant Van Larson. He's actually on orders running around this week if you see him. So now they have somebody there. It's an opportunity on the Air side for our traditional force to have those opportunities. So something we haven't had in the state in a long time. The position is filled at the discretion of the tag. So he could decide tomorrow he's done with me and kick me to the curb and decide not to fill it again. So just because we've done it now doesn't mean this is going to go in perpetuity. We could decide that this is no longer necessary. So it might be a little bit of an experiment even right now, but I think it's working. We're trying to work through some details here, and I'll get into some of that here in a second. Where do I sit? What do I do day to day? Part of the tag special staff, like any other joint position. I sit there in between the two services, and I try to make sure that the enlisted voice, both Army and Air, is getting through, and then that the information from the joint level at NGB is getting down to the state. So that's the what's and the whys and what we're doing. So next slide. So what I wanted to explain too is where I'm focused. And the thing I want to explain to everybody is I purposefully want to make sure that senior enlisted leaders for each service still do the job that they were always meant to do. I don't want to step in to do their job for them. That's not my role. My role is to be their voice as well and to make sure that we're helping each other out and that we're stronger as an enlisted force and that we're getting the information out there. So I have three priority areas that are going to be nested, or I have three focus areas that are nested under the tags, priority, and is lines of effort. The first one is deliberate professional development of Wyoming senior NCOs. So something we found out and something we've known for a while is we're probably not really good at developing and preparing E9s, sergeant majors or chiefs, for these nominative higher level positions. We usually find some talented folks that can do it, and we say, here, go be the state command sergeant major, go be the state command chief. And there's not a real playbook out there. There's some courses we can go to, there's some things we can read, but there's a lot going on there that is very unique and different, especially from the enlisted perspective. And what ends up happening is these great talented people get these jobs, it takes them a while to figure it out because it is different. You have to talk to a lot of people, and in most cases, it can take about 6 months to a year to figure out which way's up if you haven't been prepared for this. And that's unfair to our enlisted force. They don't have time for us to get our bearings to understand what we're supposed to do in these jobs. So we got to get better preparing the people we see out there, the senior enlisted, the E9s is my focus area, who we're going to start giving the right education opportunities, the right development tours, so by the time they get up to these levels, these positions, they can hit the ground running day one to take care of our enlisted force, to make sure the tag and the A tags are getting the information in the way and the manner they should be getting, so the decisions can be made with the enlisted perspective in mind. So what I've asked both Chief Larson and Sergeant Major Schmidt to do is let's start talking about bench building. Let's start looking out there who are our talented E9s that we could start giving an opportunity to put on the benches for these jobs in the future. We kind of had done that in the past, but not real deliberately. I want to be deliberate about it. It's not pre-selection. It's none of that. What it is if you're interested as an E9 to be on this bench, you better go talk to your state command chief, your state sergeant major. I'm interested in doing this job in the future. What opportunities, what things can I do to help me understand what I need to get to? And they will start to develop you that way. And you also might get approached at one point and say, hey, we think you have the talent, we think you have the skill, we want to give you some more tools in your toolbox. So if the time comes, or when the time comes, and we roll off, what we could do is go to our A tags or our tag and go, sir, ma'am, these are the 3, 4, 5, 10 people that we've given a skill set to that we think could fulfill this role. It's up to you to pick your senior enlisted leader. We didn't say this is the only one. This is the folks we prepared. Of course, the general can do what the general wants and pick who they want. But we've done our job, and we've prepared them. We've given them those things that they need to do. And I think that's the right thing to do for our enlisted force. So that's what number one's about. Now, I will say, because I've gotten the questions, for anything below E9, that becomes Sergeant Major Schmidt and Chief Larson's role. They can develop and prepare their enlisted force below these nominative level positions. That's still on them. They can do those tools as the service requires and work on it. Well, I'll help them where they ask for help, but I'm not going to engage in that process below the nominative level E9. Number two, resiliency of our enlisted force. And this is a lot of the stuff we've already talked about today. When we talk about sexual assault, when we talk about how we treat each other, when we talk about the things that matter most, especially to our junior enlisted airmen, we know there's programs out there. We know we put them in classes. We know they have to sit through this stuff during drill weekend. But unfortunately, I think what happens is We have so much stuff out there that we think we're good, and we never react until something has happened, until a sexual assault has occurred, until somebody has been treated poorly, or people are having suicidal ideations or situations like that. We're reacting to something that if we would have got in front of, if we had talked to and mentored our folks correctly early enough on and gave them the tools in their toolbox, that maybe we wouldn't have gotten to a situation. Maybe we could have avoided it. Just like General Porter was talking about what we're doing with our student flight and ISP, how they are getting told, hey, look for this when you go to basic training and your technical training. Know what it's like when somebody may be grooming you. That's building resiliency in that person. When you're talking to your soldiers or your airmen and they're starting to talk about, I might be having some financial issues and they're popping up, let's jump on that early. Let's go, hey, let's go talk to a financial advisor. Let's get you in some help early on, because usually what we find out is it started there. Financial problems started happening. Troubles at home started to happen after that. The alcohol and drugs started happening after that. And now we're trying to recover. Now we're trying to fix somebody that if we would have got early enough in somebody's career and gave them tools that are there, they're available. We're just not very good, I think, sometimes at pushing it to them. And I'm willing to take information about how we can get that better, how we can better advertise that, where we should be putting it in, better ways to teach it, and that's what that one's about. So resiliency of our enlisted force will be discussed. The number 3 is a little different, removals of barriers to service. Some of the feedback we get, especially on our traditional force, our MDA and drill status guardsmen, man, you guys make it hard for me to serve. I love wearing this uniform. I love doing what I get to do. I love showing up on drill weekend and doing the job that I raised my right hand and said I would do. But you throw all these other things in front of me. You make me do these things that suck the fun out of it. Now, we get it. Some things aren't fun. Sometimes we have to embrace it. But people are going to embrace the suck better if they feel like you're not wasting their time. If they feel like you respect their time. We have to get better at this, because if we look at our retention and we think about why especially a lot of our soldiers and airmen leave our force early, it's because they feel like their time's not being respected, and they're not being respected. And it is a barrier to service from everything that we do and what we ask them to do, especially in the culture we've created in the Guard, where there's a lot of self-service that you have to do. It's all on you. And you've all been there. You've all gotten your ID cards, your DEERS system's been messed up. Things have happened and you've fallen out of the system because somebody didn't tell you what to do in the time you needed to get it done. And now you're having to take time away from work, from your job that you do during the week to come and try to fix these things. And it just becomes hard. Or now I'm asking you to take care of these things that could have been done in a little different way. So in all 3 of these focus areas, what I do is I sit down with the State Sergeant Major and the State Command Chief, and we have a meeting for each one, and we talk about what are we doing here? Are we getting after this? And I'll tell you right now, it's a little messy. We're trying to understand some of these things, and they are in concert with what the TAG's trying to get done. We are trying to nest underneath other things, and we're just trying to put an enlisted focus on it, how we can help our force out from an enlisted perspective. So this is what a C-cell is. This is, if you're, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, about 34 states do have a C-cell. These are the things I'm focused on, and I think the next slide has my contact information on it. If you're confused about any of this, if you think I'm full of crap, shoot me an email, give me a call. I want to know. These are the things that I think are concerned to our enlisted force and we want to get after. So I appreciate your time today, and I'll turn it back over to General Porter.
Thanks, Chief. Hey, listen, I wanted to go through a couple of questions. I'll read one here, and then we'll take one from the audience, and we'll get through as many as we can. I know folks have been here for a while. Let me read you this first one, though, because sexual misconduct is and always will be a serious matter. I recently learned that the Wyoming Army National Guard's policy on sexual assault harassment is that if there are no witnesses and the suspect doesn't take ownership, then essentially it never happened. My question, sir, how do we advise our junior soldiers to come forward with sexual misconduct matters when there wasn't a witness to the incident? How do I, as a staff sergeant, have faith in the investigation process for my soldiers when myself, as a staff sergeant with a significant law enforcement, when I reported something I witnessed? I feel it is my responsibility as an NCO to protect my young soldiers, to explain the process, to guide and mentor them to build a better organization without worry of corruption and sexual misconduct from senior leaders. So what I appreciate about this is the soldier put their name to it, and I'm not going to publicly say that, but what the name is, but I appreciate that going forward. And I will just say this, that is the exact opposite of what we want to achieve here in the military department. There is no policy about if there are no witnesses and the suspect doesn't take ownership. Absolutely not. I don't know if I can convey strongly enough about how we ought to approach this. There is sexual assault, and it's just unconscionable. I don't think people outside of it really understand how vile that is, how much it breaks teams down, how insidious it is, and we just can't tolerate it. We just can't. And if any commander, a senior enlisted leader, were to enforce that standard, then we got to make a change. And there is no hiding it, folks. There's just not. I don't know if there's folks out there that think that they're, that if something were to occur, that other people won't find out about it and it doesn't affect them. It's just not true. It comes out, and when it does, and we don't do anything about it, it tears us apart. And so, it's so insidious, it's so vile that I don't know if I can express it enough that we can't tolerate it. So, in this case, if it's what's commonly referred to as he said, she said, there's no witnesses and there's no other corroborating evidence, still let us know. We will look into each and every one. We will talk to the individuals. We will do every effort we can to make sure it doesn't happen and get to the bottom of it. I think we have good people out here, so I don't know that you should be suspicious of an investigator. We've got folks out here that are good in here and want to do the right thing. They will come to a reasonable conclusion. So I will just tell you that we don't tolerate it. You can't tolerate it. You can't cover it up. And I can't think of anything that's worse to building a team that has to go fight the fight than letting something like this drive on. I'll say that. Okay. Any questions from, like I said, I got 17 questions here. Not going to get to the Air Guard ones, but I do have about 3 or 4 other Army ones that I will address. Anything from out here about anything before we go? All right. Sir, with the movement to reorganize the Army National Guard under divisions, where do you foresee the op-tempo going as far as deployment rotations in support of named operations, Spartan Shield, Enduring Freedom, etc.? How do you foresee extended annual training events in support of those divisions taking an effect on the Wyoming Army National Guard's ability to retain mid-grade senior commissioned officers? The role of the National Guard is a hot topic as far as we are a ready reserve or are we an operational force. So what are you and the rest of the Wyoming Army National Guard senior leaders doing to protect the interests and goodwill of our soldiers, families, and employers here in Wyoming? So I think the division realignment writ large on the Army side, I don't know that it will affect our Army units as much. Probably the biggest one is going to be the brigade, because it's going to have to do a bit of a field artillery brigade mission for a while, because the Devardis aren't going to stand up for a little bit, but it's also going to start getting aligned with a core unit. I will tell you, I think we're going to be much more predictable than we've been in the past. If you recall, we've been getting soldiers and airmen ready to deploy to go fight the fight. That's starting to come down now. So I think we're going to be much more predictable going forward. The interesting thing is, this last thing is, what are you doing to protect the interest and goodwill of our soldiers, families, and employers? Well, there's not just a monolithic soldier, family, employer interest. I've talked to some soldiers that are like, man, I am tired. I can't go do this anymore. And then I've talked to some soldiers and airmen that have gotten out because, hey, we didn't take advantage of some training opportunities. I want to go overseas. I want to go do those things. So there is a wide disagreement on how much is too much, how much is too little. So I would just tell all of us, the conversation's got to be out there. I mean, there's nothing that, Sergeant Major Herrera, if he's talking to his soldiers, he's got to get a sense for what's breaking them, what's keeping them here, what's going on. We got to have that conversation because it isn't just one answer for everybody. It's a myriad of answers. And I'd like to think that we're agile enough and we're smart enough and we're caring enough that we can have those conversations with our folks and get to the right answer. Because I have no doubt that we're going to be needed. I don't know what's going on in Ukraine. I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know what's going on in Taiwan. I don't know what's happening there. Hell, I don't even know what's going on here in the state. If we're going to, if we're going to have another flood or fire, we know that we're going to do that. The fact is we're going to be needed. The nation needs us more than anything now, but we got to figure out a way to survive it so that we're not breaking our soldiers and airmen and our employees to get it done. And I think that's just honest conversations with one another because there ain't one right answer for that one. So, cool. All right, you guys got any other questions or should I just keep reading? Stunned silence. All right, one more. Let's do this. This one's for our state folks. We've seen record inflation over the past year, which is only going to get worse. As a state employee, I didn't sign up to accept a pay decrease year after year. What are you, as the leader of our organization, doing to fight for cost of living adjustments for state employees? As you are probably aware, it's cheaper to retain employees than it is to hire new ones. Also, oil prices are up and prices on everything else are up. So the state is definitely bringing in some more money. So where is our cut? So what I'm doing right here is supporting the governor in this case. So Governor Gordon has put forth a plan to increase, to bring employee salaries up to market rate. And maybe, Matt, I don't know if you want to come down and talk to that or not, but we could do that. To bring employee salaries up to market rate of 2020, but then also to establish a merit-based pay increase going forward. He thinks he needs about $53 million. Is it this biennium, and then another $100 million going forward to get that to happen. Governor Gordon thinks that can happen, and he's damn dedicated to trying to get it pulled off. So we talked that at our Joint Appropriations Committee. Hey, please, Joint Appropriations Committee, support the governor in this. We need to keep our state employees, and they need to be compensated, and we got to get them along with the rest of the world. So I'd say that's where our heads are at right now. I think there's a good chance. I think there's a good chance to get that done. He like I said, Governor Gordon's dedicated to doing it. So, any questions on that from our state folks, or missed anything your side? All right. Okay, here's one. How is it there are high-ranking individuals on long tour orders throughout the state for various reasons that don't involve mobilization, yet I can't get 2 E4s on orders for 2 months to get them trained up to go into actual combat? And there's more on this. But this comes out of the AASF. So talk to the chief and the 3. I don't know where the communication breakdown is, guys, but we absolutely can get those folks on orders. There's money there to do it. And it's pretty frustrating that we've had this individual having to be this frustrated for this long to get 2 E4s on. So Colonel Rogers and Colonel Rick Geyer, if you guys get together, let's make sure this happens and get going, and we'll go from there. We'll get that squared away. And then the last one, the last couple of questions were all about, hey, what is your response and opinion on the press release of Governor Gordon? How are we going to do that? I think we've kind of talked about it. Chris Smith was the primary author of that, and so we were obviously in support of it. And frankly, we think it's important, going forward for the governor to have those authorities explicitly determined for them as they get going. We'll see how it shakes out. I think we've come to the conclusion the Secretary of Defense is probably not going to weigh in on that, and it's going to have to be Congress getting into this. So we'll get through the National Governors Association and our CODELs, and we'll see if we can't start moving that issue down the road so that we get after it, get that going. I will answer all these, even those that I've answered here. We'll answer all these so that folks that's got them. I appreciate folks that put them in. Only one person put their name on it, but that's okay. And I respect that person for doing that. That's the case. All right, folks, any other questions? You all tired of being here? All right. Nothing else? Okay, folks, just let me tell you again, I appreciate each and every one of you. National Guard had a birthday 385 years ago on Monday. We have been at the worst of times in our country and obviously the best of times, and the National Guard has always been there. And the organization in this state has been a militia longer than we've been a state. And again, you have always been there and you'll always be there. And I can't tell you what a privilege it is to serve with all of you, to come to work with dedicated Americans and Wyoming folks every day who just want to make things a little bit better. I will tell you the one thing that Deox tells us above everything else is communication in this organization still isn't where it needs to be. And we've been told that multiple times. We have yet to figure out how to do it the best. But I can tell by the questions that are asked here and when I circle around that communication is stopping at some level of the organization and it becomes ineffective after that. That's where my head's at going forward. If anybody's got any great ideas, this town hall maybe helps a little bit, but I don't know how much we're actually going to reach our traditional soldiers and airmen out there on this one. And somehow, though, communication we've got to fix, because there are narratives out there that are simply not true, and people are acting on information that is not accurate, and that leads to bad places. So help me have the discussion. If it sounds dumb, if it sounds mean, if it sounds cruel, if it sounds not right, it's probably not right, and we gotta do ourselves the organization to get there. So, and if somebody's feeling frustrated because they can't get 2 E4s, you got to take it all the way up, and if that includes coming to me, because we're not putting soldiers and airmen in the battle space that aren't trained. That's our duty. That's our sacred duty to make sure we do that. So if you feel that that's happening, then you got to keep pushing on up the road. All right, folks. Thanks very much. I want you all to have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thanks for everything you do. Take some time with your families. Take some time to reach out to our fellow brothers and sisters that maybe not be having a great holiday season and check in on them. So everybody have a great one. Ride for the brand, folks. Cool.